You remember an event clearly. Then, under pressure, that certainty fractures. Your own memory feels suddenly alien, unreliable. To understand how this happens, look at this system interface. The human brain does not record objective video. It relies on a network of delicate heuristics, represented here by the reality.system node, to constantly triangulate what is true and what is false. Emotional manipulators bypass these specific heuristics. They weaponize known psychological phenomena to feed the brain false inputs. This cognitive exploit occurs in 3 distinct stages: disabling the target's firewall, injecting a corrupted payload, and executing a recursive loop. When someone loses their grip on reality during manipulation, it is not a symptom of an inherently weak mind. It is the predictable outcome of a highly specific exploit executed against normal cognitive functions. Executing a psychological attack of this precision requires a specific type of threat actor. Research in personality psychology identifies a profile characterized by dark intelligence. This occurs when an individual possesses high socio-emotional intelligence but applies it with malicious intent. Look at this network diagram. Individuals scoring high in dark triad traits, narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy, use their interpersonal skills to actively probe a target's internal vulnerabilities. As they identify an unpatched vulnerability, they use their acute emotional awareness to manipulate the target's reality monitoring systems. The target naturally assumes they are participating in a cooperative, benign relationship, completely unaware of the calculated probing happening beneath the surface. The manipulator's high emotional intelligence provides the exact tools required to systematically corrupt the target's memory. The exploit begins with phase 1, taking the target's cognitive firewall offline. The brain will reject false data if its defenses are active. The manipulator initiates the sequence through unpredictable anger, targeted blame, or public humiliation. These aggressive tactics immediately flood the target's nervous system, creating an environment of extreme physiological unsafety. This geometric shield represents executive function, the brain's critical reasoning center. When the brain detects a severe threat, it physically suspends this system to prioritize immediate survival. Without executive function, the physiological ability to evaluate incoming information logically or think critically is suspended. Instead of turning outward to question the source of the abuse, the compromised brain turns inward. It looks for ways to appease the threat and de-escalate the environment. The target begins internalizing the maltreatment. They scour their own behavior for faults to rationalize the abuse they are receiving. The manipulator then maintains a constant level of ambient tension. This ensures the target's executive function never fully reboots. With critical reasoning disabled, the target's mental data entry ports are unguarded. The manufactured panic and unpredictable rage serve a precise structural purpose. They are the prerequisites required to force the system to accept false data. This brings us to phase 2. Look at this clear data file representing a stable memory. With the firewall down, the manipulator injects a corrupted memory payload directly into the open space. Cognitive psychologist Elizabeth Loftus defines this through the misinformation effect. Human memory is highly reconstructive. Every time a memory is accessed, it is essentially rewritten. When misleading information is introduced after an event, it works backward in time, actively distorting the brain's original coding of that event. This distortion is amplified by source monitoring errors. The human brain struggles to permanently index exactly where a piece of information originated. It frequently confuses whether an event was experienced firsthand or if it was simply a vivid story recounted by someone else. In the 1980s, President Ronald Reagan publicly recounted a story of a heroic pilot as factual military history. The story was actually a scene from the 1944 film A Wing and a Prayer. Similarly, President George W. Bush distinctly recalled watching the first plane hit the World Trade Center on live television, a broadcast that never existed. In a gaslighting dynamic, the manipulator exploits this exact vulnerability by introducing a vivid, aggressive lie about a past event. The victim's brain absorbs the false narrative, drops the source tag, and seamlessly integrates the lie into the original memory file. The victim's brain has integrated the malicious data perfectly, executing its reconstructive design exactly as programmed. The payload is now inside the system. Phase 3, the execution loop, locks it in permanently. This relies on the illusory truth effect, the psychological tendency to categorize false information as correct after repeated exposure. The biological mechanism driving this phenomenon is known as processing fluency. Look at this looping code. Each time the manipulator repeats the false narrative, the visual static decreases, the victim's brain processing the statement with slightly less cognitive friction. The human brain misattributes this ease of processing, this fluency, as a biological signal for objective truth. This repetition exploit is so powerful, it overrides prior knowledge and established facts. Research by Vanderbilt University psychologist Lisa Fazio demonstrates that repetition increases perceived truth even for blatant falsehoods that contradict the subject's own common sense. In one study, repeatedly exposing participants to the statement, "A sari is the name of the short pleated skirt worn by Scots," actually tricked them into accepting it, despite knowing the correct term is a kilt. The brain paradoxically registers a wrong fact as correct simply because the phonetic and semantic structure feels deeply familiar. Inside an abusive relationship, the gaslighter repeats their manufactured narrative so relentlessly that the victim's brain biologically feels it to be true. The neural pathways associated with the false narrative physically strengthen through repetition. Simultaneously, the original, accurate memory weakens from disuse. Through relentless repetition, the manipulator actively reprograms the victim's neural pathways, forcing the brain to retrieve the lie as the dominant truth. The victim's grip on reality dissolves because their native cognitive software, processing fluency and reconstructive memory, was manipulated perfectly. The resulting confusion does not indicate emotional weakness. The victim's brain functioned exactly as designed while under a sophisticated malicious attack. Because the internal reality monitoring system is compromised, clinical defense requires an external backup. Look at this terminal overriding the glitching interface. Rigorous journaling, saving written communications, and documenting events function as this external, unhackable hard drive. Strict documentation creates a read-only memory file. The manipulator cannot access or overwrite physical text with post-event misinformation. Trusted third-party verification provides secondary authentication, verifying reality against an objective standard rather than the manipulator's narrative. These external records bypass the illusory truth effect entirely. This static evidence interrupts the processing fluency loop, allowing the reality compass to lock back to true north. Surviving this psychological exploit requires stepping outside the manipulator's logic. You secure your reality by patching your cognitive vulnerabilities and backing up your data offline.